take me out to dinner? Will you hold me by the hand, say I'm yours? Will you be mine? Will you promise me forever, never ever look at another girl? I know in this day and age it's not proper for a girl to ask, but I know if I don't take this chance, I'll kick myself till the end of time. If I don't ask you now, will you be mine? Will you take me to meet your mother? Will you hold me in your arms, say I'm yours? Will you be mine? Will you promise me forever, say you're mine always to have and to hold? Just think of all the time we could waste, embraced in each other's arms, the adventures we'd have, what stories we'd tell. If only I could think of some way to tell you how I feel. Will you be mine? Will you take me to the theater? Will you shout out loud, let them know I'm yours?
Well, the Unity Hall was built by members of the Wakefield Industrial Cooperative Society. They were formed in the 1860s by prison officers from the nearby Wakefield prison.
Warders working in the prison realised that the bursar was able to buy good food, in large quantities, of course, much cheaper than they could in the shops. And, they said, well, couldn't they cash in on this and buy through the prison? And they were advised that they couldn't, but that they could set up a cooperative and therefore buy in bulk themselves. And that's how the Wakefield Industrial Cooperative Society came into being.
I'm looking at an old engraving of the old cooperative premises, which had been opened in the 1860s, those stretching along the western side of Bank Street off Westgate, which shows the use of the various shops.
The Wakefield Industrial and Cooperative Society was formed in 1867. By 1876 it's become so successful that they could think about building their own building, and they put out a commission for architects to build their premises.
This particular paper is an extract from the Wakefield Herald. It was now proposed that new central premises should be designed and built. The newspaper goes on to say that the premises include a butcher's shop, a baby linen shop, and various other shops, which were all going to have to be demolished to make way for this huge building. The cost of the building of the new premises will probably be from £15,000 to £20,000. And in September 1901, the newspaper reports the laying of the foundation stones for the new central stores. And the president, Mr. Laycock, laid with due ceremony the foundation stone on the right of the entrance, in a cavity in which, the stone, was placed a sealed bottle containing copies of the local newspapers and various documents relating to the society and to the new building. The style of architecture is an adaptation of Flemish and Gothic. There's now a membership of 5,300 in the co-op and a turnover of about 140,000 a year.
If you stand in Westgate and look at this building, you're actually seeing two buildings. You're seeing the original one that faces onto Bank Street, and then you're seeing the more modern one that comes down Westgate along Smith Street, a much later extension, but still typically of the Victorian period.
The ordinary members of the society, working class people who didn't have a lot of money, but who were nevertheless a member of their society, they would invest their savings in the society, as well as buy their goods from the society. They could walk past a wonderful building like this and think to themselves, I own this. Something new for working class people at the time. But the cooperative movement wasn't just about shops, it was about a sort of wider social purpose to create a fairer, more equitable society.
Right from the beginning, when it was built, Unity House was made available for the showing of films. Those were the days, of course, 1901 to 1910, when you didn't have to have a licence to show films. You could show moving pictures to a paying audience wherever you liked. Travelling salesmen would just bring a suitcase of films and a projector which they could stand anywhere, and they would stand it in Unity Hall and project these films for 6p a night. And they would bring a range of very short silent films. They perhaps lasted anything between a minute and 3 minutes. And then they would show a whole evening, one film after another. And people must have found it a tremendous marvel. It would only be one or two men with their little projector, hand-cranked, of course. And so, you know, you had to turn it very steadily, and if you didn't, the film flickered, and that's why they called them the flicks. My mother had no income of her own. She was dependent entirely on what my father gave her for housekeeping money. But she always assumed that her dividend on her cooperative account was hers. And I remember so well the days when we used to go to collect the dividend.
Going with my mother and enjoying remembering what her number was, that I could tell the man behind the big screen what the number was, and my mother got her little packet of money.
These people who come to the window with the money, I mean, you think they're grandees, don't you? Giving gold away. My mother was always terribly grateful for her bit of divvy.
7171 MG.
So it's always been there, and if you like, part of my life. My father worked there from leaving school, and mother worked in later life. I'd be five or 6 years old when I remember being taken. You didn't carry it home, you just took the things you needed immediately, and then things were delivered. And then subsequently helping when Father Christmas came in the first year was the big thing in town, because there had been no Father Christmases. I don't know whether there were any before the war, but there certainly weren't any during the war. And it was the first one, and it was the only one in Wakefield. I was there at one side, they had a girl at the other, and a big box, and we handed the presents to Santa to present to the children. They queued, massive queue, because Santa had arrived on a sleigh that was one of the wagons decorated. They used to start off at the top of Heath Common and bring Santa in.
Well, I can remember that it was all the co-op in Bank Street, the building of the co-op, and we lived in a co-op house. There were 4 terrace houses, then a little bit bigger house. All these were joined on to the co-op, and every morning they used to bring horses and carts down and load up with the fruit and veg in that street, and then they went off to various areas in the town to sell the fruit and veg. The offices were at the front of the Unity Hall, and we used to go up to the offices to pay the rent.
You outside the house in 1951. I can remember playing in the co-op building, probably because it was raining and couldn't play out. I remember being told off by the man in there and being shouted at because we used to run around and slide down the banisters. And a high old time. I think all the kids like to do it. It was like a playground really, because I don't remember there being anything like swings and slides around. So that was a lot more exciting than just being out on the street. And then that's you cutting the cake.
Yes, I had my wedding reception there in the guild room. I worked at the co-op. I was assistant cook down in the cafe. The confectionery shop was on the ground level and the cafe below. So I liked the guild room. It was also a library. You could go get a book there. There was a lady who used to run an elocution lessons in the guild room. She used to get us doing a concert once a year. I've deteriorated since then. Back to Yorkshire.
I met Margaret at school. We lived in the same street. We actually lived on the same road. We were married on a Saturday, and that was very difficult because parents worked in shops, and to be able to have a Saturday off for a wedding was something quite special, really. Margaret's mother started there at 13 years old as a dressmaker and continued to work there all her life. The early photographs are definitely in the 20s. Margaret's mother is actually one of the models on one of those. They were revived in the early 50s when Margaret's mum was in charge of the mantle department, and they could come and see the fashion. They did them twice a year, spring and autumn, and they were very, very well supported. My family was involved because my father, as one of the managers, was one of the group of people who did all the preparation. They all helped each other. They tried to move with the times. For example, in Coronation Year, it had a Coronation Year theme.
You just went to Unity Hall, nowhere else, because you couldn't afford anywhere else. They learnt you to dance. We used to learn, I even learnt Lancers there. That's how old I am. We used to go Tuesdays, Thursday nights and Saturday nights, but Saturday night was a proper dance. It was Bertogli. Everybody enjoyed it.
I remember as a 4-year-old coming to see my father play. He was a musician, played saxophone, and he played here with his own little group called the Merry Macs and with the Bertogli band. I can still remember seeing people dancing to my father's band in the minor hall, and my mother tells me that I had a little toy saxophone which I stood in front of the stage in the minor hall playing along, pretending to play along with my father. It's the earliest and only memory I've got of seeing my dad play live, as it were.
There were orchestras used to come in. We've had Squadronaires, the RF band. Felix Mendelssohn, his Hawaiian Serenaders. It was a smashing place, really. Well run, no drink, couldn't even get a cup of tea. I met my husband there for a start. Best thing that ever happened to me. Yeah, one of these, when he came in, the place lit up.
It was the time of Teddy Boys. Bopping was just starting. And they came from miles around, they ran buses. It was one of the places to come. It was Norman Longbottom and his orchestra. It was a character, was Norman, a little fella. Plenty to say, but he always had a bouncer behind him. He always had somebody who could handle himself. In fact, I know at one stage the story went that the guy was the NCB boxing champion. They took the brass knobs that were there to stop kids sliding down, they took them out of the banister, and somebody was found to have made them into a knuckle duster.
I did most of my trade union training at Unity Hall, and also some of my political activities have been at this place, and we also had trade union meetings which were all held here. It were quite tidy. I mean, there were services in here, the tea ladies were on call, all the rooms were kept up. Venues like this embedded themselves in that history and that culture of people power. It was an excellent space to learn in. First band was a school band. It was called the Cosmonauts. The first time I ever played in front of an audience as such was at the school Christmas concert. And then I got into other bands, all local bands, and eventually ended up in a band called the Teenagers.
and they played here in the Unity Hall. And then I was in another band after that called the Gibson Four, and the Gibson Four played here in the 60s, and I remember very vividly playing here. Later on in the 1970s, after I formed Bebop Deluxe, which was the band that enabled me to turn professional, we actually played a gig here. It was absolutely packed. It was one of the first sort of returns to Wakefield after I'd turned pro and we were touring the country. My dad was one of these, he was a hard taskmaster before Bebop Deluxe. He always wanted me to learn to read music, and I just couldn't grasp it, and so he gave up on me and said, oh, you're never going to be a musician. When Bebop Deluxe was on TV one time, I went round to watch it with my mum and dad, and I thought, I was really, my dad's going to pull it to pieces, and he was really quiet all the way through it. And afterwards he turned around to me and he said, well, I've got to hand it to you. He said, I don't know how you do that. He says, that's fantastic. And that was it. That was the only reward I've ever needed, for making music.
When I was 11, 12, started playing guitar, and we had groups from the start and played, as you did round here, the working men's clubs. The next stage of seeing the possibility was when Bill Nelson's group came along. Bebop Deluxe, the idea that this group was from Wakefield, it sounds a bit, it's hard to imagine what an impact that had then, because rock bands didn't come from Wakefield. They just didn't. It was simple as that. Then I just remember one night going past and they were rehearsing there, and it was just sensational. I thought, what is this? Listen to that guitar playing. It was just completely out of this world. It wasn't just suddenly that they were from Wakefield. It's that they were so good as well. What changed the goalpost was punk, because it suddenly erupted out of nowhere, and it was this, hang on, we can do it too. Just before we started playing Unity Hall, we toured. I think we did around 220 gigs in 1977. The idea to book Unity was there was a sparsity of gigs in Wakefield. There was just nowhere to play, really, and we were suddenly being able to get 200, 300 people to regularly come. We started looking around for somewhere bigger, and I think it coincided with the council deciding what do we do with Unity Hall. So really, the first time we played here, it was an eye-opener for them, because it was fairly riotous and there was no security, and us, in a way, doing that showed the potential for the place, and that's when promoters got involved and started bringing some big names.
I would have been about 16, 17, something like that when I first went there, or maybe younger.
The guy on the phone is a guy called Barry Snaith, Baz Snaith, and he was in a band from Wakefield called Strange Ways.
One of the famous bands here was the Pretenders that played. They were in the same stable group as the local band Strange Ways.
The first time I played there was with a band called Just Frank. And we were supporting the local heroes, Strange Ways, and it was also the night when Chrissie Hynde played.
Barry wants to point out Chrissie Hynde was supporting Strange Ways from Wakefield, not the other way around.
The famous thing is, the first gig they ever did was here at Unity Hall.
She came into the dressing room with Chrissie Hynde, and someone had a pair of leather trousers on the back of the chair, and leopard skin, trousers on the back of the chair.
We were the butt of their joke, because they were always taking the mickey out of our accents. And when we were here, Chrissie Hynde said,
"Whose are these strides?" she said, in an American accent. And Ada said,
"Oh, I'll have them if there's any brass in pocket."
She said, "Brass in pocket? What does that mean?" And he said, you know, like money in your pocket.
Anyway, so for weeks after, they were saying we'd written this song, Brass in Pocket, you know, and I thought, well, that's going to be shit, isn't it?
And the next thing, it was #1, the song Brass in Pocket.
You know, and yeah, first #1 of the 80s, so.
Wrote by the American Chrissie Hynde, based on what happened in the dressing room in Unity Hall here in Wakefield.
Tu fais toutes les choses plein d'autres, choses sauvages.
So I knew some of the lads from Strangeways, so I used to help them out at the gigs, and that's how I got to work on the door. There was a guy who had a single out, cut a little piece of toast. Paul Young, but they came and about 8 people turned up. I think they played about 4 tracks before they went home. So everybody got the money back, and I got paid and had a early night.
It was just the hub of music in Wakefield, and every up-and-coming band seemed to come through there. And the guy that promoted everything, a guy called John Keenan, was just brilliant at getting... he had his finger right on the pulse of the music scene, and everybody knew him. All the agents knew him. And he was able to put all these fantastic bands on there. It was brilliant.
And we were very lucky, it kind of being on our doorstep. And tickets weren't expensive. It was almost like going down your local. We used to come through the side, what's the side door, which is the main entrance, and we used to sort of get excited, come in and go up, queue up that grand staircase that's there now to hand our tickets in before we went up the final bit to go in through the doors. And I always remember the beautiful stained glass windows down the side of the hall. Used to go walk through the back of the hall, go up the little steps in the corner and walk down into this big open square bar that was very old-fashioned at the time. But everybody was in there, so it was just like seeing the same old friends.
One of my favourite bands was a group called the Pirates. They played here sort of like in mid-September 1977. You were heading to, you know, a really great venue, and you're going to have a really good night out. It was cheap. Everybody was just in a really good mood. Nobody was, you know, down or anything like that. We always used to run up the stairs to get the best front stand, as it were, right next to the stage. You know, and the group was coming on, and it was absolutely fantastic. Had a real good, raw, you know, venue, as it were.
I think Toyah was probably good because she was pretty well known then, and it was kind of a heroine of me and my friends. And it was fantastic, you know, It's a Mystery and all of that, and we'd all dress up specially to go along to that.
My greatest moment of live music was seeing Captain Beefheart here. Absolute mayhem. I think it was early 1980, something like that, and the place was absolutely... They nearly brought the roof in.
Sound was always good in there. Most of the time you played there, you knew half the audience anyway, because it was just ours. You know, it was our venue, it was in our city. And I mean, a lot of us didn't even get as far as Leeds, never mind anywhere else. So, you know, it was just brilliant that all these people were coming in from all over the world, basically, to play there.
Some are not, but I'm too old to worry and too young to stop. Hey, baby, what's your game? Hey, baby, what's your name? So many women, so little time. So many choices in a lifetime. Some you keep and some you swap. But I'm too old to worry and too young to stop. Hey, baby, what's your game? Hey, baby, what's your name?
As a cooperative society, it closed. The local authority took it over for a time, but then they sold it off. And so, you see, nothing was ever invested in maintaining it and upgrading it. I mean, I doubt whether it's ever been rewired, for example, or whether the lighting has ever been improved. So, it was only very partially used, very, very neglected.
I came here on more than one occasion in the last 10 years, to talk to students from Bretton Hall College, because Bretton Hall's music students were moved into the Unity Hall, or the Unity House building, and had classes here, and I was invited to come and talk to them. I'd done this at Bretton Hall as well, so when they moved in here, I was asked if I'd come and do a couple of talks. It was in a bit of a state. It was full of desks and projection equipment and musical instruments. It was scruffy. I think it's definitely deteriorated since they've moved out, but it wasn't in great shape even then.
It's been empty, semi-derelict for a long time, apart from a few nightclubs and pubs that have been making use of it. So when somebody can come forward with a credible project and say, we can solve this, we can put things right and bring it back into use, not surprisingly, it sparked interest in the public's mind.
The 19th century history of this place is just, it's what inspired me partly, just that you had hundreds and thousands of Wakefield people investing in this co-op and building it to such a success. They could create a fabulous building like this, and it's that sort of spirit I want to recreate in the business that we're building.
I'd read about it in the Wakefield Express. I was just looking through the paper on a Friday evening, and I just thought it just sparked back in me that feeling, of Unity Hall at the time. It was just a really good feeling, and I wanted to bring it back.
There's so many memories that people have got associated with that building. It's very nostalgic. When you walk past it and you just see it empty, it's a constant reminder that it should be used for something better than just left dormant. It'll bring other activities into the area, and maybe not just music. It could be all kinds of different arts activities.
We are Unity. That's what we've kind of decided, and within Unity we branch into Unity Hall, music venues, Unity conferencing facilities, and Unity business units and so on. So the word is such a gift. The name of the building is such a gift to us, because that's what we want to portray. We want to be about unity. So much individual endeavour and creative pursuit is happening in this city already, and we want to encourage it, celebrate it, pull it together, support it. This thing has to be profitable so that we can plough back into the local artistic and creative community and give them space and help them do more.
It's a question of exciting young people that there is going to be somewhere that they can take to their own and they can help to influence and can be a kind of one-stop shop for everything that's going on, not just in that building, but around Wakefield. And it's how we bring that together, or how we grow it. And I think the opportunity here is enormous to achieve just that.
Well, it's a big step in the history of Unity Hall with the official handover to the public, and I remember Unity Hall from years ago. If you look at what Wakefield's tried to achieve in the last few years in terms of the cultural offer, this just adds to it, and it helps us to start develop again Westgate, part of Wakefield, so it's going to be something that everybody in Wakefield is proud of.
Officially, it's the signing of the lease, and it's actually it's quite a small, simple thing. But it's important that we involve the community in every aspect of it, really, because it is a community project. So people have come down to support that first step. Builders are coming in now, and things are going to start happening, and things are going to start changing.
It's something that's evolved slowly because we've gradually realised that this thing was started off as a bit of a dream. It'll never happen, it'll never happen. And it was kind of, well, maybe it might. And then it's kind of, oh, it looks like it's going to. And then it's like, wow, it's happening, And now it's a case of we just can't really wait for it to actually open its front doors and bring on the first bands, and let's fill the place.
I think there's a lot of small groups in Wakefield. There's a small indie thing and a small jazz thing and lots of other kind of genres of music. And a lot of them are kind of reaching a glass ceiling in Wakefield, I think, because we don't have many big venues at all, So I think Unity is it's a way for those to grow individually, but I think the important thing is that they'll grow together and there'll be a kind of central hub for people. I think it's really important in a place like Wakefield that they come together. And I hope that Unity can kind of be a beacon for that kind of stuff, really.
It's been 2.5 years, hard struggle to get to this point, but now we've raised the 4 million and we're going to take this wonderful old Unity Hall back to its greater glory of the 80s. It's going to be England's greatest music venue and a fantastic centre for creative business. So thanks very much for investing. So now we're going to get our hands on the keys. Mark Leatham.
And this is just such a lovely end to the story. Well, it's not an end, it's a beginning, isn't it? But, when this place has been the centre of Wakefield for 100 years and then almost dead, to have this lovely moment after 2.5 years of being able to start to rebuild it and everyone gathering around it, it's a lovely, lovely feeling.
Coming home.